Damn, Zazan really knows how to keep us busy with all his assignments. Let me just check the time. Shit, the deadline is already in 3 hours. I think we will have to split up so that we can finish right on time. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I will take the first part and you the second part.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do that.
Okay, perfect.
Let's get started.
2 hours later.
Do you have the first draft ready so we can merge our files and see if the whole script runs through?
Yeah, wait, let me just do a quick save so that I can give you the file. Okay, it's saved.
Thank you. Let me copy it quick.
12 seconds later.
Shit. I just found another bug. Can you give me the file back? I will just real quick update it.
Here.
Let me just fix this. Okay, now upload it.
Okay.
Did you get the file?
Yeah, I got it.
Let's just hope that everything worked with our versioning.
Yeah, well, I think we did a good job at this.
You ran it through, right? It worked the last time.
Perfectly. Okay, let me upload it quick. After Dropbox and upload it.
Yes.
Nice, good work.
Nice. Can you give it to me one more time? I just want to do a security check whether it runs on my PC as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it should work. So.
Dude.
What's the problem?
I'm only getting errors.
Oh, fuck. The deadline is over. Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Philip.
And I'm Lucas.
And even though the performance you've just seen will probably not win us both an Oscar, it might have shown you that things can get really complicated when you're working together on a project. And that's why today we want to talk more about version control and in particular talk about Git. Okay, so what exactly is Git doing? Well, Git is basically a tool that allows you to keep track of the changes that are happening in a project or in a Python file that you are working on. Think of Git as basically someone or something that is constantly watching all the files that are in your repository and notice when changes are happening to these files. This is especially highly important when you're working together with multiple people on one and the same project and you want to keep track of who does which changes, how is the project proceeding, and in case something goes wrong, you can just go back in time to the latest stable version and continue working from there. Okay, hold on. What is a repository in GitHub? So basically, first of all, let me give you a high-level overview of what's happening. Well, basically, when you look at this graph, there are 3 or 4 things you need to know when working with Git. First of all, we have our working directory, which is basically the folder where you're working in. You store there your Python file and your script and maybe the data set you're using. That is all in the working directory. Then we have the staging area, which is basically in the middle. You can think of it as a room where you take your folder, you push it into, and then you look what changes were happening and you can review them and think about them like, do I really want to do this? And if you're sure that these are the changes you want to make to your project, you push them into your local repository. And your local repository is basically storing each version of your project. And when I'm talking about project, it's looking at every file in your project and keeps track of the changes. Yeah? And you can go back to these previous versions anytime when you use Git properly. And then, last but not least, we also have a remote Git repository, which basically is on GitHub. If you haven't used GitHub before, sign up for it. We will put a link in the description and then show you how to use it in combination with Git itself. Okay. But how does Git know of which files it should keep track? Well, we can tell Git to do so by using git add. With git add, we are basically taking a file from our working directory and moving it towards our staging area. From here on, Git will follow the changes that are happening to this file. And if we decide that the file is good as it is and we want to store it for later, then we can use git commit to basically push it to our local repository or to our remote repository. Okay, hold on. Now we have added the file from our working directory to our staging area. But what if we do changes again in our working directory? Well, then we just repeat this process, do another git add, and Git will notice that we modified the file. Yeah. And we can basically keep track of all the changes that are happening to this. And once we decide, okay, these are the changes I'm satisfied with, you can use them to do a commit and push them into your local or remote repository. However, keep in mind, don't make the changes too big so that you can basically keep track of each change. Yeah? Put them in small chunks that are easy to work with, especially when you're working with other people on your project. Well, but how do I keep track of all the changes that are happening in the project? Well, with Git status. Git status allows you to basically see what has happened in your staging area since your last commit, and thereby you can see at the last changes and decide whether you want to take these changes and add them to your local repository or not.
After Philip introduced you into the Git basics, we'll now come to the more practical part of our video. You can pause the video now and install Git on your own machine. To do so, we provided you some download links in our cheat sheet. So let's start. Now we want to create a new repository. For that purpose, we will create an empty folder. So, empty folder, and call it example repo. Now, to initialize this repository as a repository, we need to open a command line. And now go to this directory. Let's see, example repo. And now we can initialize this as a Git repository by typing git init. Now our repository is initialized and we can use Git functionality on it, like git status to watch our repository. So we see we are on the master branch, we have nothing committed and nothing added yet. So in the next step, we will add a file to this repository. To add a file to our repository, we go to the folder and now put an empty text document in it. So we call it example and have now a new file in our repository. But what happened to Git? So let's watch our Git status. Okay, we see there's an untracked file, our example.txt we just created. And to add this to our Git repository, or to the staging area to be precise, we type git add example.txt and watch our status again. Now we see our example.txt is added to the staging area, but not committed yet. So as we want this change to happen, we have to commit this change with git commit. Now we have to write a message what our commit was for, like first file add. Now our changes are committed, and if we look up our git status, we see there are no open commits and our working tree is clean. Now we want to change our file. So we go into the file and add some text, like example text in example wish to save it. And now we will want to look what git status says. So we see, okay, there's an untracked change we can add to the staging area. And now we do this with git add example txt. And now we added our changes to the staging area. Now we want to commit these changes. So we type git commit. This was our first change. We named this commit first change and enter. Now in git status we see we have a clean working tree, nothing to commit.
But isn't it super annoying to keep track all the time of the changes that you're making to the project? It definitely is, but it helps. Because when you're working together on a project, I can tell from my own personal experience, you always need a meeting and talk about whether you make the changes. Git, if used properly, will allow you to just take a look at the log and see, yeah, my teammate just made these changes we talked about, I don't need to work on these changes anymore and can work on something else. And this really helps you to keep track of the project, how it proceeds through time, and it's definitely better than just storing each version of your code with a v1, v2, v3 and continue this till you basically die. Well, yeah, and how do I work with the log file? How do I realize basically what changes are happening to the project? Well, the log file tells you how many insertions there were and how many deletions of code. So basically how many lines of your code and project did change. And this is something very useful. To be honest, the terminal is not a good way, or at least I don't like it personally. Since it doesn't provide you a good overview what has happened in your project. But if you use, for example, VS Code, you can visualize the changes that are happening in your file and get a comparison of your old file and your new file, and the changes are underlined red and green, as you can see here. Yeah, this is super useful when you work with code or on a project. Yeah, so use it.
Now, as we did numerous changes to our repository, we want to view the log and history of our repository. To do so, we type git log and get the logbook of our commits. The newest commit is at the top, followed by the older ones. There you can see the commit messages and unique identifiers of each commit. Now we want to go back in time. For this, we use the function git checkout. So with this method, we don't overwrite the actual standing, we just check out an older one. So if we type git checkout and put in a unique identifier of an older commit, then we can watch the state of this old commit. So if we went back to our example txt, we see it's empty, as it was empty after our first commit. If we want to go back to our actual standing, we can type git checkout main, as main is our actual branch we are on, and we can see that in the log it is the last commit. So push enter, and now our text is back.
Okay, so how do we connect our local repository with a remote repository? Well, we use GitHub for that. If you don't have a GitHub account yet, just open one with the link we provided in our cheat sheet. Should be straightforward. If you're having any troubles, reach out to us. So, why do we need GitHub and how do we connect it? Well, basically GitHub is an online platform that basically allows you to have folders as you have in your normal working directory, store files, and basically share these files with other team members. So think of it as a cloud. Well, and to connect GitHub with Git, you need to authenticate in your local machine by logging into your account. So it's important that you have the two-factor authentication deactivated for this, otherwise Git will ask you for some access token and things can get really messy. So just leave that feature deactivated and then you can work with Git and GitHub without any problems.
As we created now our first local repository, we now want to link it to GitHub. So to do so, we start with a GitHub account. So if you don't have a GitHub account, create one. And after you create the GitHub account, you can move to repositories and add a new repository. We name it example, like our home repository, and switch it to private for now and create it. Now our remote repository is created, and GitHub gives us some advice how to move on now. So as we have an existing repository on our local machine, we follow these 3 steps. So in the first step we add a remote repository by typing git remote add origin and our URL. Enter. Now we added a git remote. In the next step, we create a new branch, our main branch, and we will talk about branches later. After we edit the branch, we will now push our code to the remote repository. This means that we upload our code to this remote repository. So we copy this line and put it here, and push or upload the code to the remote repository. So as you see, okay, we have uploaded it, and now we should see it up here on this web page. So we reload the page, and now we can see, oh, there's our example txt we just created a few minutes before. After we used the push command to push code or upload code to our remote repository, we have to talk about its counterpart, the pull command. So if there's a new code up on the remote repository somebody created and you want to download it to your local repository, you can use the command git pull. So to do so, we need some new changes to our repository that aren't local or local on our local machine. So we go to our example and edit it online. So new line and commit these changes. So for now we modified our remote repository, but these changes aren't on our local machine. So to download them, we will use the command git pull. So you can see we have one insertion, one file was changed, our example txt, and we can go to our file and look, okay, here's our new line. So as we told you before, Git is a great tool to work together on projects. So we now want to add a contributor to this project. To do so, we go to Settings, Manage Access, and add somebody. In our case, my case, I will add Philip to this project. So pretty easy. Now he can contribute and push and pull from this project, and yeah, quite easy to do.
Unfortunately, we haven't had the time to cover everything Git has to offer, and trust me, there's a lot more we could talk about. But since we indicated in the beginning, we have a cheat sheet, so take a look through that. These are the most important basic commands, but we also include links to further websites where you can read more about Git if you want to. We highly encourage you just start working with Git on your own projects because practice makes perfect.